Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Style That Binds Us show. Today is a special edition about celebrating life. And our guest is Kerry Schrader of Mixtroz. She's going to tell us a little bit about her profession and her career path, which is a fascinating one. And then we're going to talk a lot about some personal stuff, too, that we have in common. One thing that's very interesting to me is that Kerry and I have never met in person, but we have been through a lot together because we became friends during COVID.
Yes.
And other things that have happened. So anyway, Kerry, welcome today. Thanks so much for being here.
You are so welcome. I've been looking so forward to this, not just to share my journey, but I think our collective sharing on how we do what we've been doing and how we're surviving. I really hope that your listeners will find it interesting.
I totally agree. I think so many people, especially, the older they get, the more they are concentrating on other people. And it's harder. I was thinking today, too, when you're in college or high school or, when you're younger and you're surrounded by girlfriends and everything, and you have other people or just friends in general to talk about things that you're going through and things like that. And sometimes that's the first thing to go. And that's so important in our lives so that we don't feel like, we're going through everything alone. But before we get into more of that, let's talk about your career path.
So my career path, it's funny. I always knew that I was a people person. And so my undergrad is in business, and that ultimately led me to a career in human resources. So whether that was labor relations, employee engagement, what have you, just really focusing on the human asset inside of companies. And I say human asset and focusing because a lot of times, especially being women, when we're the HR person, people think of us as the best birthday cake getter, or, like, let's go out and, gold shamrocks or something, when actually that's a very strategic role in a company that really does help support and optimize, not just for the company, but for the human as well, the human asset, which really is the heartbeat. Oh, look at all of these little things I'm doing. Is the heartbeat of a company. So, yeah, so I did that. It was funny when I first really got my first shot into human resources in labor relations. I was working for an airline that just had filed bankruptcy. Ashley was a young girl, 4 or 5 years old. I was going through a divorce. So although my finances were consistent, I was nervous about the future of this bankruptcy. And it was back in the days when these corporate bankruptcies weren't as popular as they are now, that you can look beyond them. It was during a time that airlines was in bankruptcy, and so those weren't as popular or utilized as they are now to really restructure. And so it made me nervous having a preschooler and not being able to look out long term. And so I got a call from one of my sorority sisters. I can remember being in the office and her calling and saying, "Hey, I know that Ford Motor Company is hiring and they're looking for somebody in employee relations. The only problem is you're going to start off on midnights." I was like, midnights? Ford Motor Company? Yes. And I went through the process, and that really, really started my formal ascent into HR.
Mm-hmm. And you got an MBA, right?
Yes, I did that MBA while at Ford, 10 years later or whatever. I did it the rough way, with a family, with a husband that was working and it was on the move as much as I was. So I look back at that, and I always tell my friends that it was great. It is great. The MBA actually stretched me in being able to be more capable of research and, looking for answers, thinking out of the box and all of that. But had I had a looking glass into what those 2.5 years would have been like, I never would have done it. And I say that same thing about Mixtroz. Sure. And to get to the end of the story with the master's, I never would have done it. But once I completed it, my next role outside of Ford, my pay increased by 60%. My organizations that I led were larger and larger, and just my area influence widened. But when you're going through the storm, who cares about that? I got kids. I'm trying to write papers, and it was right on the cusp of computers. So we had a computer. I actually had a laptop. I swear it weighed 12,000 pounds. Just really doing that whole saving thing and cutting and pasting from your work and building another paper, like that was just on the edge of that. So trying to do that, raise kids, stay married, and work full time, no go.
No.
But it did pay off and continue to pay off. Although my degree is dated, you can't take away my ability to think differently, the ability to research and those kind of things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it sure is impressive when you hear it too. You're like, ooh, that's okay. So tell us a little bit about Mixtroz so people understand what that is.
So Mixtroz is that other thing I just alluded to that had I been able to see in the looking glass, I may have made a left at the stop sign. Mixtroz, which stands for Mixer and Introduction Smushed Together, is the brainchild of my daughter and I, that on the very same weekend at the end of 2014, we both had an awkward networking experience. She in New York with her demographic, and me in Nashville in my very youthful demographic. And it was just, there has to be a better way. So with Ashley, that's my daughter's name, she was in New York. She attended a big all women's conference. She was hyped up. There were big speakers. Her whole reason for going, and she paid for it herself, was to expand her network outside of her vocation and the people that she knew. And so she was doing that weekend. On the same weekend, I and my husband, we hosted a party of sorts, and we met at a restaurant. Everybody had to pay, but it was a big deal because it was a restaurant you really couldn't get into. So I invited my friends. Everybody showed up. They had a smashing good time. I paid just like they paid. At the end of the day, they were like, Kerry, we love coming to stuff that you do because we meet such a wide range of people. It could be somebody I met in the grocery store with a Cleveland Cavaliers hat on, or it could be one of the leading heart surgeons at Vanderbilt. So those type of people are there, but I was wore out because all I did all night was, hi, Anna, here's Frank. You both
I know.
Somebody would come up to me and say, hey, introduce me to Alison. And then I talk what I'm doing and introduce. And so everybody won. The restaurant won because everybody showed up and it was quite pricey. My friends won because they met other friends out of my friends circle. And I mean, I won because I enjoy seeing people come together, but I was exhausted. And for your listeners that are our age, they may remember Julie off of the Love Boat. That's what I did for a whole evening, and I was exhausted. The next day I talked to Ashley and said, hey, how did that conference you paid for go? She said, Mom, it was great. You should have seen the styles people were wearing. Oh my goodness, Sarah Blakely was a speaker. I'm just so psyched up. I said, well, tell me about all the people you met. And she's like, I didn't meet anybody. I was like, what do you mean? When it was time to network, the instruction was go up to another female with their name badge, look for a little micro dot on their badge, and if it's the same color, go up to them. My daughter, who is still too cool for school, as she says, was like, I am not going up to somebody's boob, stare at it.
Exactly.
I'm orange, let's talk. So instead, she passed lunchtime away with her phone. So Mixtroz was born, and I have to say, we both tell people, had we not had those same experiences on the very same weekend and could really relate to it, if she would have came to me and said, Mom, I'm about to quit my job in about 18 months and do something with some technology, I would have told her she was nuts. And certainly if I would have told her that, she would have had me put away really quick. So that's the story of Mixtroz.
It's such a great story, though, because everybody that's listening to this can relate to that. You might try it once, but then if it doesn't work well, you immediately, that's the good thing about phones, the bad thing about phones, you have this, people act like they're so busy. Well,
Yeah.
they're not busy, they're pretending. Or they're even pretending they're on the phone because it's awkward and it's uncomfortable. So I know after the one virtual event that I did with y'all, I just can't wait for others. It was just the most exciting, wonderful way to connect with people. And I think the idea is brilliant. And I think, it's interesting. We were listening to, I've been listening to so many podcasts and everything lately, but we were taking this online free course from Yale called The Science of Happiness and Well-Being. And this man has done this. It boils down to, not to spoil the whole thing, but what we all know, doing things for other people and socially interacting is really, what brings happiness. And so he did this experiment where when everybody gets on the train, you wait for the train in New York or in Boston or wherever, the metro or whatever, and this huge group of people, but no one speaks. You get on the train, no one speaks, And so he asked people to take part in this thing where they had to talk to somebody. They had to make themselves talk to somebody on the train or the bus, and to see, if it put them in a better mood going forward during the day. And it turned out it did. And the reason why most people don't talk is because they think the person next to them is busy and doesn't want to talk to them. But 9 times out of 10, they do. And you have this great conversation, and then you get off the bus or whatever, and you feel great because you've had a little social interaction. So
it's all about building community. And this is stuff that we've learned on the way. And so whether you're building that community in a call, an event like you went to inside business or enterprise, or certainly on college campuses, that connectivity starts a direct path to profitability, because the more you are as an attendee, again, whether you're a college student, an attendee at a virtual or live event, or working inside a company, then you're more productive. You're less likely to call off work. You're more creative and coming up with good ideas. You're concerned about the people around you because you know a little something about them, and it might be things that you have in common or not, which leads to a whole different level of respect. And so if you're coming to work, going to class, coming back to an event, that leads ultimately to profitability for whoever that organizer is. And so that has always been the value statement for Mixtroz. We create real-time engagement through building communities while collecting that custom data for the event organizer. And that's the 10 questions that all of the Mixtroz magic happens for attendees at each event that's activated.
That is so cool, because I was thinking about the social interaction and everything, but like you said, you can see how that will encourage profitability, especially, and also longevity at a company and everything else. I mean, the more connected you are, the more devoted you are. So that's
100%.
Yeah, this other thing that's so fabulous. Okay, well, we're going to do a podcast with the 4 of us, and we'll be talking more about Mixtroz, and hopefully we get to be a part of more Mixtroz things. But for right now, I want to talk to you about us personally and working. We both work with our daughters.
Yeah.
They're about the same age, and I think their personalities are very much alike.
We think they're very attractive. They're very smart. They're very insightful.
Yes.
Yes, all of that.
Yes.
But we'll talk about the dark side as well.
The dark side. I love it. I love it. So tell me some of we'll start with the negatives, or the challenges, and then we'll talk about all the great things again, because there are certainly more of those. But what are some of the things that you face as, that are a little bit of a challenge working with? It can be working with anybody closely that's younger, but, specifically your daughter.
I think specifically, I think this is a very different conversation than working with a person that's not a family member, and specifically a daughter or a son, because even though you're so equal in your partnership, there is a hierarchy in your family. And so it is a delicate balance to be able to maintain that partnership on the job, and at the same time, keep your place, your position in your family. So, I just think for Ashley's point, she would tell you, if she was on this call, if she was on this podcast, she would say, hey, I kind of have lost a mom in the making of Mixtroz. So where I was so readily available for any type of advice that she needed pre-Mixtroz, we tend to be more focused on our joint child, Mixtroz, than on our personal piece. So it's been times when she has had to say, Mom, I just want to ask you about this boyfriend relationship without you somehow getting it back to Mixtroz. And I will admit, you know, I had funds, my personal money involved, friends and family money involved, which put an extra set of pressure, whether it was real or perceived, on me. And so I kept trying to make sure we were doing that, thinking you can balance everything. And I have to say, I'm a 100% believer. You can't have everything. The pie, how you cut the pie stays the same. How you cut it, you can slice and dice in different ways, but I don't know how you make everything even.
Right. And sometimes one part is a bigger piece, and sometimes one part gets a bigger piece. That's true. And I think too, the other thing that changes a little bit is we're used to being the mom and, you know, sort of running the show. And then when they come in, as far as like technology obviously is concerned, and other things too, they, you know, they have to show us how to do some things. Maybe they know some things that we don't know. And that's an unusual feeling. You know, I think the technology part, all moms can relate to, but especially when you're working with somebody in a professional situation, and they have to sort of correct you, or obviously like today, I couldn't start the Zoom meeting because I didn't know exactly how to do it until Delia was available and she was with a client and things like that. And so that is an unusual thing you have to get adjusted to, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. And also, sometimes, as we are all busy, and I respect Ashley's hustle and wouldn't do it with nobody else.
Right.
I'm telling you, even in her career, she was a workhorse, and she is all things good. But sometime in this busyness, when you ask what you think is an easy question, like, hey, did you look at so-and-so? Ashley's favorite thing is, Mom, that's Googleable. I'm like, it's Googleable, but it's also askable because you're on the phone. So give me the answer. Okay, so.
I love that so much. Askable, because that's the same thing. And Delia will say, read your notes. We took notes about this. You know, I'm like, well, now I can't find the notes. Or like you said, it is Googleable, but it's going to take me 30 minutes to Google it when you could give me the answer right now.
Right now, without any problem.
Right.
And I love you, and you'll understand this, and you do not have this problem. I'm admiring even the ring on your finger. You guys have style. When it's time for me to step up for style, like I even said, Kerry, put on something today and not do your entrepreneur t-shirt or whatever.
Right.
You'll go way out. But Ashley, who also deems herself as my stylist,
I love it,
can get on my nerves, because I'm like, how do you think that I had a 25 plus year career? I've gone to some mighty fancy things. I've actually had people call me and say, did you get that from? Or, oh my God, you looked really well. Or, you know, maybe not today, but I usually look very youthful. I know how to, you know, put my makeup on and highlight and whatever. But it's just so funny. Like, I have literally come out to do interviews, whether here or there, and then that's her first look. I feel like a bride. You know, that was her first look, and she's like, Mom, you had on 47 pieces of jewelry. That's the one thing she hates. Like, when if we're going to a formal affair, it's something about, I like to wear every piece. So if I have the earrings, the diamond bracelet, anklet, a nose ring, that's what she's like. Mom, she actually said to me one time, Alison, I came out, my husband and I are about to go to this affair, and she said, hey, the phone's for you. And I was like, I didn't even hear the phone ring. And she said, it's Disney. They're looking for their ice princess.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
I said, don't hate my hustle. something happened to me, you'll be digging in this jewelry box. So
exactly. And I'm sure as a HR person, people would reach out to you and say, you know, what am I supposed to wear to this interview, or what is the company culture and all that stuff. That's hilarious. 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 I think we were on a recording a podcast recently with this woman who's around our age, and she lives in Charleston now. She's a fashion historian. So we were talking about looking back at fashion like during the Great Depression and things like that, and what can we expect coming out of this. And that was a fascinating conversation. But Julia said, you know, I had my life exactly the way I wanted it. I had planned it out, and it was going so well until this COVID thing. And the woman, I could hear her kind of chuckle, not laughing at Julia, but just like, oh, to be young again and think you had your life figured out, you know?
100%. I mean, but on the good side, I will say, well, first of all, Ashley's normal reaction to whatever I say is, Mom, that doesn't make sense. No. But what I will tell you, when she takes 12 seconds to reflect, and she has admitted this, she's like, oh, Mom, that was a great idea. Yes, this is, I'm like, so you just have to learn how to work with your kids. And guess what? We've done a great job of raising them with their own level of confidence and being able to state well their opinion. So it's just some of those things that are like, oh my goodness, how did we do that? And the other thing that I would like to ask you, as the mom, have you found it difficult to put that line between, okay, there's stuff I can tell you as a co-founder, but family stuff, or you know what I mean, like things going on, they're like, no, this is really none of your business. Like I can't confuse you as my girlfriend,
right,
versus a business partner. And I've had to watch myself, even if it's, she has a brother, I have a son, and you know, if he's doing something I don't like I got to be careful, like just like I wouldn't tell him stuff about her, I have to be careful of not having that we're founder lens on and let's just share everything. And I have had to explain that to her. Have you dealt with that at all? Or?
I have. And sometimes I feel like the way she talks to me would be the way she would talk to someone else that she worked with, you know, just sort of like, that's not correct. Or, you know, just sort of, now if I talk to her that way, she would not like that, because that's like Mom fussing at her. You know, then she might get her feelings hurt. Well, we're in this, you know what I'm saying? She would never say she was getting her feelings hurt, but she would not. So it's interesting that there again, I think it's that thing about they're young and they, you know, they still think they know everything, but they know so much. It's not even I'm so glad they have the self-confidence, but sometimes it is, you know, sometimes you do have to say, this is Mom talking now.
Right. Oh, I've actually had to do that. Like, no, this is, and I don't want to talk to you about that, but I also believe it adds a layer of stress that they don't understand of, I get it. You're frustrated over a deal that maybe fell through. You're frustrated over a boyfriend thing. Your car needs service, whatever you have, I also have the weight of our family. So from the husband, from your other kids, I have step kids, you know, that again, I'm really not sharing all of those details with you because that is girlfriend talk, or just, I hate to say it, grown folk talk.
Right, yeah.
Ashley would have a fit, but I mean, really, and so whatever stress you have, I always am warmed up because I have the family.
This whole other part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing too. It's like, you know, they can really concentrate so much on the business. Yeah. And then you don't want to not do your part, but at the same time, you do have, or had, in your case, aging parents and other children and a husband and a house, you know, and you got to feed people, you know, there's so much that we have that since they haven't lived it yet, they just really won't understand until they get there.
Yes. I mean, it's funny because as you just alluded to, my mom just recently passed away, which was my last parent. And, you know, just still really, I can see it in my face. Like I'm trying to deal with that and be back at work. But a few times, and I mean, my kids grew up with my mom, like they were around until we started moving around, which now has been 18 years with my career, but always a tight relationship. But even within that tight relationship, when I was like, okay, I'm trying to schedule stuff around here so I can get to Ohio and whatever. And then Ashley would say, Mom, you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself, and you can't be everywhere for everybody. But I'm like, okay, but you don't understand. And you love Nanny, but Nanny is my mom. So like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so like that little piece of she gets it, but not get it. And so it's that little piece. So no, I just wanted to see if that was something.
Yeah, absolutely. They can't get it until it's their turn to go through it. You know what I'm saying? We've been both places. Yeah. We've been their age. We've been there, and we've also been the mom that was with them all this time. You know, so it's a fascinating thing. But then on the other hand, I think that we're proud of them. They're proud of us. We also know, when she is maybe rude or short, that what's happening in her personal life. Yeah. Whereas when you're at work working with other people, you're just like, I don't know why they keep yelling. Not that we sit around and yell, but you know what I'm saying? She would come to me.
100%. I understand. I know when, again, deals aren't going how she feels they should go, or even her personal life. Or I also know she sympathizes and empathizes with the stuff that I'm going through. You know what I mean? So it's not like she's totally detached and like, I didn't realize. I mean, she is, because, and now it's funny because every 12 seconds, you okay? So I'm good. Let's, keep it rolling. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the same. Okay, now that leads right into the next thing about, it's like, do you need some water? Are you drinking enough water and everything? So, of course, right now, and I am heartbroken for you for losing your mom, and I know there's nothing like it in the entire world. And all you can do is, get live in it and keep going. But that made me lose my train of thought.
Anyway. They support us, yes.
And like taking care, and then sometimes like we talked about the other day when they feel like they have to talk slowly to us to explain things.
If you pick up your phone and go to settings, okay, are you there? That just cracks me up, yes. Or I really love when I'm trying to be ultra cool, we're somewhere, because again, she got her millennial thing. She is very attractive, so I'm trying to fluff up my hair.
Frozen.
I got on my heels. Nothing works. Help me down the stairs, which again is great, right? But I don't need it.
No, and it's hard too. I think that's another thing. It's hard to like be someone separate than mom. Like if we want to be like cool and sexy and everything, but then we're with our daughter, so they were like, well, we got to be like mommy. It's an interesting thing. But
with the skirt thing. Now, if I come out, and I got to tell you, it's a shame that we're in COVID and can't do this in person where you could actually pan down to my legs.
Yeah.
Tina Turner has nothing on me. Like I do. Like I can even camouflage weight issues by having a shorter skirt on, not a mini skirt, not a kid's skirt.
Sure.
Like, you're doing yourself a disservice, lady, in your whatever age range, and you have on a skirt that your 20 or 30-year-old daughter, you would chastise them for.
Oh, yeah.
If I pull it up just the least bit on top of these and throw a heel on, she is like, what you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about, Ashley? You have on Life Stride shoes and support hose. I'm like, not happening, not yet, and I'm not backing it. But
no. That is hilarious. It is so true. It is so true. It's so crazy. And that's what I do for a living is, help people know what does 50 look like? What does 40 look like now? What does 70 look like now? Because nobody really knows anyway. But then when you think you got it figured out, your daughter's like, that's what you're wearing? That's
right. I get that.
And that's what we said to them.
Yes, it's funny because when we're out and people come and give me a compliment, she enjoys that I'm getting a compliment, but she kind of like, especially I'm telling you, when I got everything going, people are like, "You're her mom?" I thought I know it's so creepy that she calls me mom. I'm her sister, and and she's like, "Oh, she loves that. Oh my God, she loves that."
Hilarious. That's so creepy. She calls me mom.
Right. I'm like, it is. I don't know why she does that. I was like, it's sick. I just started to answer, but I'm her sister.
My God, that is so great. That is so hilarious. Hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah, trying to help you down the stairs and everything. I was telling my mother about that. I was like, I know how this must make you feel when I try and do that. Because now she's doing it for me. And she goes, well, I am 83. You're only 57 or whatever I am. 57, 58, 7. But anyway, okay, so let's see. What else? I had taken notes. I wanted to talk about, when we were talking on the phone, I loved when you told me your father said something like you knew you were going when you got here or something like that.
Say that again.
Like when your father said, he seemed to have a lot of great wisdom. Like you knew you were leaving when you got here or something like that.
Oh, as far as lifetime. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, my dad is always, he's like, life is for the living. His whole thing was, I want to see my kids be able to take care of themselves. And so my dad I have a brother and 2 sisters. He put us all through college. I had a high grade point as they did back in, Barney Rubble time. Right. But I never even thought about, I need a scholarship or any of that, because he was like, nope, I want to live long enough to see you do your thing.
Awesome.
And he did. And he's like, I get the sadness, but we all come here knowing we have to go. And so he was big on that dash in the middle. And so those are things that have stuck with me and my siblings too. Like if you talk to us all separate, even with our kids, for my siblings that have children, our kids can repeat those things because they have heard us talk about it or it being sad. So even with the freshness of my mom passing, I had to like get on the horse because she's like, girl, I think I even told you, I had a C-section with a 10-pound son, and she came in the room like an hour from him being born when I still wasn't sure I was going to live. And she was like, so how much time do you have off of your job? That's a good job. When you get back to that job? I'm like, I may not go back. Right now I'm concentrating on life.
You like the baby?
So their work ethic always has been high, and it was an expectation. It wasn't a good to have. That's what we saw, and that's what we did.
Right. You didn't know any different. I mean, that was so great, because I think a lot of, as we've talked about before, a lot of kids are so, coddled is the only, I know they use it all the time, but
it makes them entitled. And then,
But then what happens is they think they're entitled, but at the same time, they get out in the real world, they can't handle the first problem that comes their way. Yeah. So they really are. So, we have that little voice, I remember my grandmother, because I went through a divorce too when I was younger, and she would send me pictures of, people in great distress that she saw in magazines and stuff, and said, no more crying for you. This, people have it worse than you, and get up, you cried enough, let's go. You're going to the grocery store for it.
More in common than like people would ever know, because that was my mother's thing. Like if I called her and said, hey, the roof just fell in. Somebody also hit my car, and somebody turfed the lawn. And she was like, all of that is sad and distressing, but you need to be thankful that you can afford to get it fixed or you have insurance. Like she would take you right. I don't care what it was. I just cut my foot and I have an infection and I'm at the hospital. And she's like, imagine the people who can't go to the hospital, who also can't deal with a bill that's coming to their house. And before you know it, she had preached a whole sermon on blessing. I was like, well, thank you very much for that. And I would let them reattach my foot at this point.
Exactly. It does hurt that way. Bye.
Thank you so much for that. So.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting. And I think those are the people like that came right after the Great Depression too, the grandparents of us. and then that trickled down to the parents of us, and so those are those thoughts that, this is what it is. You get up, you deal with it, quit complaining, and all of that stuff. And so I think thank God, I'm sure that's why we've gotten through some of the incredibly, you and I both had tough, everybody by the time they're our age has been through tough times, and we'll continue on, Okay, so advice to your younger self. When you were talking the other day about, being an empty nester and realizing, we can just sit here and, have sweet rolls that our neighbors just brought that are so delicious, and we can relax and kind of enjoy life for a little while. The other thing that they talk about in this Yale course that anybody can join, they talk about time affluence is what they call it, and how no one is making time to do nothing or just to appreciate life. So that's one of the things I've always thought, I think obviously to tell our younger selves, it's going to be okay. But what would you say?
I would say find your confidence earlier. I worked in primarily men-dominated fields, so in manufacturing. So although I was in HR and employee relations and all that stuff, it was mostly in manufacturing. And before all of think about us before all the Me Too, for me, Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, all of these mantras, that there is significant pressure on corporations and hell, for that matter, people, to embrace everything and everyone. I mean, I was coming up in manufacturing before that, and sometimes I truly felt like the lone voice of, this is not right. I have to tell you, when that whole thing with one of the more celebrity anchors on NBC came to a head a couple years ago, I was like, you know what? I was fighting this, not the Me Too thing, but telling other people, you can't do that to people. You can't, I don't care what your title is, you can't say that. And the amount of pushback, like it was like, I'm trying to keep us out of trouble. But because nobody's paying attention and these lawsuits were just starting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was exhausting being in that chair where people were like, oh, this is the HR happy dappy chair. It's like, no, I would tell people, like, I'm trying to keep you and me both out of jail. I know better. I need to be keeping you from doing whatever crazy thing you're saying is right. Pay scales, looking at, like, this is not right. And then fighting for my own life. Why is it taking me so long to get a promotion? And why are these other people that I'm training and have more experience and education than are moving up? So but it was about confidence, because you know what? I have to say again, to my mom's teaching, was in a very blessed position because I was making more money than a lot of people who looked like me.
Right.
I was seeing things and doing things. And so trying to be careful rocking the boat when you're that lone voice. And then many times in my career, there would be not even to mention a woman of color, but just even another woman. That would be few and far between. I have a good friend to this day that is in a very high level role in another company. And her and I used to meet in the bathroom to be like, okay. And then that was the only thing we had to kind of keep ourselves going. And so I would say to the younger Kerry, have more confidence and even perhaps take more chances than I did. And I took a lot of chances, but it was always, oh my God, if this doesn't work out, this could be it for you.
Right. I can't imagine the push and pull, especially because if women in the company came to you and said, help, this is happening to me, and you knew nothing was going to change, you could tell them that they would just, so for you to step out, I mean, that's really, really complicated stuff,
What the hair is, I had to fix it, sorry.
That's so funny. So that made me think about, when they've been playing that, the letter that John Lewis, right?
That just passed away.
The letter that he wrote to himself, to his younger self, was just so amazing. And I think, the message is sometimes, you know, when we see, you know, we can put it into practice with our co-founder. Like right now, we know it's going to be okay if we take it a little slower, or if, you know, I don't get everything done right on time, I will do my best to get there and things like that. I feel like taking more chances, that's, you know, that's still a difficult one.
When you look at his particular life, he was so consistent on trying to do better,
right?
Not only for himself, but for other people. Even, you know, we've been barraged with all of the great things he's done and said in these last couple of days. But if you listen to it and look over even that timeline, he is dead on it. He's consistent. I literally just saw, there was a movie playing in Birmingham at their new drive-in thing, not even a month ago, called Good Trouble. That was his movie, and it's like, that was inspiring, and that was another one of those. Kerry, could you have even dared to push the envelope in such a good way and remain a good human? Humanity, especially humanity now, not only tests the limits, but it tests the limits of one's soul and forgiveness and faith, because you're just seeing so much crazy stuff go on, and this man somehow was able to still keep a positive, consistent attitude.
A dignified attitude.
Yeah.
The whole time, you know, the whole time. So that also leads to this, where we are right now. You know, COVID is disastrous enough, but, you know, now we're having this huge new conversation about race. And like you said, you're a woman and you're Black, so you have had to face both of those things. You know, maybe not as much as other people did, but in your world, I'm sure it was just as much, you know. You know what I'm saying? The girl, when we did our talk, when we did our Mixtroz thing, and I loved the girl in my small group that works with you. She's so wonderful. And she said, you know, she hadn't really given it that much thought because she hadn't had that much, you know, that she had felt she had, you know, had things done to her because of race. But the more she thought about it, and I think you and I talked about that too. And how are you feeling about everything right now?
Well, you know what, I gotta tell you, I very much feel hopeful. I do not think this is just a moment. I think that we have enough, again, thank God for our millennials and those even younger than them, that like, what are you talking about? Right. This person is a person. And so they, like, when you see these little kids, 8 years old, marching, Black, white, holding hands, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, I have hope. But again, with the passing of John Lewis, when you see, we're still struggling with stuff he was struggling with in 65. And then it came back up in the 70s. And even today is, I believe it was the 50th anniversary of the burning down of Detroit. I think it was 50. I saw it this morning.
The march.
Yeah, it's like, when is the craziness going to stop? So I feel hopeful, but sometimes I'm just like disheartened.
Right.
Well, I happen to be in a biracial marriage, and my son is biracial, and I just look, and it's nothing that I was like, oh my God, let me go and try to find a person that's not my same color. My husband is Black. I mean, him and I got along for a season, and anybody else dated, you know, mostly people of color, like no problem. The great news about me growing up, I think that is just, again, a tribute to my parents. The house my mom just was in was our family house for the past 57 years. So they had that house built. We stayed on that block. It was multiracial back then, Polish, Spanish, Black, white. Even the children of those families were at my mom's service. So that's how long ago. Like when I go down the block, I know whose house is who and what. So I always lived, and we were in the North. So I always lived in a diverse bowl. I didn't understand it. I was quite old before I started really like, And it would be when I left my city. I actually had open heart surgery as a child. And because of my dad's peers at US Steel that gave blood, that's why I'm here. And they were black guys, white guys, red guys, purple guys that handled all of the blood for the transfusions that I needed. So it's disturbing to see that people are getting mistreated. I heard the word lynching the other day. Somebody almost got lynched somewhere in this country.
No.
Just for the day.
No.
We're often then, we, because of the color of our skin, people make these assumptions. People make assumptions about you, good, bad, or indifferent. And now that the country is in such turmoil, the whiteness of your skin, somebody could look at it and say, automatically, she does not like black people. She tried to kill 7 people. And so now we're
yeah,
and they don't know anything about you. And I actually say that to my husband, like, nobody knows when you go out, you have a son that is half black, you have a wife that is all black, who is all black. Like nobody, I said, so be careful because we're so out of sync. We're just, unfortunately, a lot of people are just out to hurt each other. And we have really gotten, we'll have to do a whole new podcast because I also believe we have gotten so out of sync that no one is really allowed to have an opinion. And when our opinions don't line up, we don't know how to disengage respectfully. Somebody has to bring somebody down. And that's why this country is going crazy.
Yes, I think that's a huge, huge conversation we need to have. And also fear. So much of this is just fear, and it's the same thing, we can also, as women too. I mean, it's interesting right now to me for me and you to be our age and, for you to go present about Mixtroz and a group of mainly men in the tech industry and have them take you seriously, even before, they notice, oh, she's black. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we're dealing with all of that too. And now nobody, it's just such a mess.
It's so crazy. I knew even in this Mixtroz thing, I got to a point early on because you're getting feedback, whether it's body language or some fool actually saying it to you. But it was like, you know what? I have to walk in every room and say, my name is Kerry Schrader. I have an undergrad degree and a master's. I have the senior certification in HR. My electric bill is paid. I've been out of the country. I have a passport. Like I felt like I had to keep giving credentials to be able to come worthy. Yeah, and that I have to tell you is the most awful feeling. And I had to stop. I told somebody, I said, in my 25-year career in HR, it took every bit of, like, I would be lying to you not to say the first 17, 18 years to get confidence of like, no, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm doing. Right. I know whatever, don't care, I can get another job, whatever.
Right.
I almost started that same cycle of entrepreneurship where, oh, Kerry, be quiet. You're not certain of this. Let these people talk to you any old kind of way. But I was like, oh, we're about to shorten up the timeline, baby. I'm not doing this for 17 years. So that has been ex-nay to the no-nay.
And that is awesome. And that's another thing, like advice to younger self or advice to our younger co-founders too. And I think they seem to already kind of have that. But for us to remember, they might throw big words at you, these tech words or whatever. They might talk really quickly and they don't know any more than you do. We have experience.
They don't know about Mixtroz. They can say what they want to about the rest of the world. You do not know more than Kerry Schrader about Mixtroz. And the only one who can give me a run for the money is Ashley, and she will tell you I will wear her out in talking. So if we're just talking about Mixtroz, I'm like, oh, at hour 24, she's like, Mom, I'm tired. I'm like, nope, just get started. So you're 100% right.
Right, absolutely. So we have a lot to offer. Okay. Do you feel like we've covered everything for today? I know I've kept you a long time. I feel like it's just the beginning, though.
The only other thing that I want to say, regardless of age, but specific to as you are getting in your 40s or depending on what your family history is, take care of yourself. So I have on the 2 necklaces out of all the jewelry that I have a lot. Ask Ashley, and I got all of them. I always, every day, wear this cross because it, like, when I'm just people, circumstance, some crazy person, I actually will feel for it, like, oh Lord Jesus.
Sure.
I'm like, give me faith,
Yeah.
like, don't let me say what uncrossed Kerry is thinking. So like, I do that. But I also, in the last maybe 3 years, I think this is 4 years old, this breast cancer ribbon. I was diagnosed with breast cancer going through Mixtroz. We literally had just raised a friends and family round, went to a mammogram that if I was working in my corporate career, probably wouldn't have went to because my trips, like I was in the middle of doing something, got the call, okay, you know how you do it a year ahead. And I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and check this off my list, because me and Ashley were meeting up at a conference, whatever. Went, and then like a couple days before I was to leave for the conference, I get a call, and I was like, these people normally just send me that little letter with the ribbon, you great, you know, whatever. And I was like, hello. And they're like, oh, you need to come back in. So I jumped on the Google real quick. I said, oh, I get it. My deodorant must have did something. They wanted to do it. So when I was there, when you go the second time, and hopefully you don't know this because you haven't had to go through it, if you go the second time, they actually start reading your mammogram x-rays in real time. So when I went to start changing clothes, she knocks on the door and she's like, wait a minute, we need to redo it. And I was like, what are you talking about? The ultrasound. I'm on my phone, I'm Googling. I said, oh, it must be fatty tissue because I'm overweight. And so that's the other thing. I always felt like being slightly plump, as they call it in the South, then I don't have any disease. Like in my mind, the disease people are down to 12 pounds, whatever. So, yeah, that went from another x-ray to a biopsy to, oh my goodness, you have breast cancer. And so what I will tell you is this: for as busy as we both are and for as much stuff as we're doing, I guarantee you, if a doctor tells you you have cancer, your schedule, like my schedule just opened up. It was like, oh, I got plenty of time. Surgery, let's do it. So I ended up having surgery and then had to go through 6 weeks of radiation, which was every day, 5 days a week.
Oh my God.
I used to call it tanning, and Ashley would get so mad. Quit saying that. Oh. But you know, as time progresses, it is really like having extreme sun exposure, and towards the end, like your skin is burning. Like just, I mean, so it's a simple procedure, but it does add up. All of that is to say, I always, when I speak around the country, my last slide is, you know how busy you think you are? Don't ever be too busy. Men and women, get your yearly exams. Even if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, guess what? I don't have a lot of money. Go look for stuff for free. People are doing free mammograms and pap smears and the men annuals, the prostate checks, whatever. Get somebody to draw your blood, whatever, to know what your baselines are, because all of this, even this conversation, the success that we both are enjoying, the ability to work with all of our kids, all of that stops if you're not here. And so I'm real big on get your checkup. And I had friends, my professional career friends that were VPs and CEOs and all kind of stuff. When this happened to me, I was like, have you had your mammogram? It's been 5 years, or I'm scared to have it because I have a 7-year-old. I'm like, oh my God, does that make sense? I mean, do you want to see your 7-year-old turn 15? I mean, these are highly educated women.
Right.
Yeah, and so I will say, by speaking about it, I've had several people come up and say, thank you for that. A, I'm behind, or B, it's recognizing that all of this is a rat race and means nothing. This whole thing means nothing if you're not here, not only on this earth, but having a quality of life to be in the game. Yeah. So we got to do our part. Sorry about that. I jumped on.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. I think that's super important, especially, you know, there is more life. There's more to life than work, even though we both are very entrenched in these businesses we're building and the way and they're 24/7 businesses, the way they're not brick and mortar type things. But, and so there's a lot of stress, and I really believe that stress, you know, is not good for you. So we need to concentrate on trying to stay healthy, eating the right things, and most definitely staying on top of your health.
Staying on top of your health. The mental health counts too. So
Yeah.
I have a counselor. Glad to have her. Like I told her, once we IPO, like you're coming on staff, you're gonna have your own nice couch, dark lights.
I love it.
Yes.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fabulous, and hopefully it's just the first of many.
I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think that it'll be a help to a lot of people.
Well, we hope so.
We have a lot more to talk about. So thank you, everybody, for joining the Style That Binds Us show today. See you next time. Bye.